Kyle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it is an honor to once again debate in this place and to debate a bill that I think takes on a special relevance in the year that we find ourselves in, and that is where online and the dynamics associated with online content have expanded dramatically with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just in the last number of decades, I recall back in high school when they were talking about how the speed of a computer was doubling every 90 days or something like that, and then the next year they'd say it's doubling every 45 days, and the rate to which technology is advancing is incredible, and along with that comes challenges, changing dynamics that do definitely need to be addressed in legislation, and the fact that with the tabling of the Yale report with the 97 recommendations that this is what I would assume is part of that response, being that it addresses only a small number of those challenges. But, Madam Speaker, having said the demands that we're faced regarding where we're at in terms of needing to make some of these changes, I would make a couple of observations about the bill. I think that one of the challenges that we face, and I certainly think of a few of the speeches from my colleagues preceding me, the member for Carleton, the member for Abbotsford, the member for Regina Louvain, and others that have articulated very, very well some of the challenges that we faced. And when this bill was first tabled, I had a number of constituents, those real politicos that don't just follow the news as it's seen on the news channels, but they follow when bills are introduced. And the response was striking. I had a number of constituents that reached out and said, "How do we know that this isn't the government just trying to take more power? How do we know that this isn't the government trying to regulate free thought? How do we know that there's not a nefarious agenda at work here?" And I think that speaks to some of the greater societal challenges that exist, especially when it comes to the way that the government opposite conducts themselves, and certainly some of the comments that the Prime Minister has made, whether it be regarding China, whether it be regarding other aspects of society, his observations about even our country, or the minister that is responsible for bringing forward this bill. There's a great deal of concern. And certainly my hope is that in the midst of the debate in this House, that the government will articulate very, very clearly those concerns, because when I look at this bill, I see that there's, and I have it here in front of me, there's 13, 14 pages, and yet, having read it, there's not a whole lot of clarity as to what's actually trying to be accomplished. And I think that poses a problem. And that's part of the reason why constituents, when they reach out and say, "What's this about?" they have concerns, because they don't trust the intentions that are brought forward in the preamble. And certainly that is something that needs to be very, very much clarified. So a few points that I think need to be addressed. Leveling the playing field. With the explosion of digital content, and it's interesting that we're having this debate today when just a number of days ago there's some fairly significant conversations happening in the United States surrounding Facebook, and whether or not it's too large, if the government in the United States needs to take some antitrust actions. And I think that that's something that I would hope that the minister is following carefully, and how it speaks to the larger issues that we face when it comes to addressing the evolving nature that is digital content. And certainly a big part of my concern here, Madam Speaker, is that this bill does not ensure that those web giants, because they are giants and they touch every part of our life. I know I have an Android phone. And Google touches every part of my life, whether it's talking to my kids as they're tucked into bed at night and I'm here in Ottawa, or to do with my job as a member of Parliament, whatever the case is. Facebook as well. What don't we see on Facebook these days? Certainly, there's a great deal of concern that it's not clearly articulated how some of these things will be addressed, and that they don't make clear what the standards for that will be in terms of those multinationals and the rules that domestic content suppliers, producers have here in Canada. Now, I will be mindful of my time because I think I'll be cut a couple minutes short on questions, or maybe, okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I will take this opportunity to note one of the things that I think, to unleash the private sector. I'm thrilled. There's a community in my constituency, many of you in this House will know it as Drumheller. And it's the dinosaur capital of the world. The heart of the Canadian Badlands. In it, not only is it known for the dinosaurs and the Royal Tyrrell Museum, and a big shout out to everybody there and the challenges they're facing because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what has been very, very interesting is how that community has benefited greatly in content creation. In fact, I found it very, very interesting when my wife had suggested we watch a Netflix series, Lost in Space. And I thought, man, those hills look familiar. Well, it turns out I hadn't been to that planet, but rather I'd driven through Drumheller. And it was filmed there, and of course there was some CGI and whatnot associated, but incredible work that's done here in Canada. And it's not just the solely Canadian content, like we see sometimes produced by the CBC, and although there are some aspects of that content that a lot of people are very proud of, there's a lot of it that, quite frankly, I question why tax dollars go towards paying for it. But there is a lot more, whether it be Vancouver, whether it be the prairies, whether it be Toronto. The number of television shows that are supposedly based in New York are actually shot in downtown Toronto. It's absolutely incredible how much Canadian content there is. And to ensure that the free market is absolutely unleashed, to ensure that Canada is a destination for that investment and the jobs that come along with that. And I was very, very pleased that when the leader of the official opposition was running for the leadership of my party, he did actually address one of these things, and that was to eliminate the goods and service tax on Canadian digital platforms as a mechanism to say, look, it's an equal playing field. And I think that that's something that bears significant, that bears mentioning in this place. Now, a couple other issues, and then I will wrap up with a very, very important one. Nothing in this bill seems to address the issue of royalty sharing to media content shared on digital media. It does not explain how digital platforms are treated versus more conventional broadcasting. It gives full enforcement powers to the CRTC, and like the member from Carleton articulated very, very well, I certainly have a great deal of concern when enforcement powers are given, and like the member from Abbotsford before mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of hesitation when the minister has the final say on a lot of the governance aspects of how content is done, and I mentioned that in terms of how my constituents reply. And there's a number of other concerns, but I don't think I'll have time to get to them, so I would finish with simply this. I think all Canadians should be concerned with the New York Times editorial, and it's been discussed in this House, related to the exploitation of children on the could call it a web giant. Certainly, when you read the New York Times editorial about MindGeek's Pornhub, and how there's a tremendous amount of issues that need to be addressed. And Madam Speaker, I don't have the time to get into that today, but as I read through this New York Times expose and some of the debate that has taken subsequently here and around the world to ensure that there is a clear understanding of how we can ensure that those most vulnerable among us are protected. So I would simply finish my remarks with that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, we'll have 3 minutes for questions and possibly 2 minutes after oral questions. Questions et commentaires, the Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my honourable colleague for his intervention. I do have a couple of questions, because actually Bill C-10 is a direct response from artists and from musicians and from independent producers and technicians in the arts and culture sector in Canada who are saying we are losing our cultural sovereignty. What he says is true. There are a number of productions that are happening in Toronto and in Vancouver and in Montreal and in Manitoba, but these are service productions. These are American stories being told, and what they're telling us is we are losing our cultural sovereignty. And I think the Conservative Party recognizes that, but the minute that we want to try and do something, and in fact, just a few days ago, we've had the MP from Lakeland, from Portage Lisgard, from Peace River, who've all said the government needs to intervene to regulate online platforms. And the first attempt we make at doing that, they say, oh my God, they're trying to take away free speech. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the member's comments. I don't think there was a question there, but I would say this: as I was looking through this bill, and certainly I am no expert in terms of media and production, but I've talked to many filmmakers. In fact, proud to have a filmmaker in my constituency is creating a kind of a film production base, a ready-made set that people can come, whether international or domestic, local, Indigenous, French, whatever the case is. But I think that part of it's interesting he brings up the issues he does, because this bill doesn't seem to address the very things that he suggested it does. There's ambiguity in what this bill attempts to address. And so therefore, how can a producer, how can a content...
The Honourable Member will have 3 minutes for questions following question period. It's now time